Hi there. There is a big difference, I think, between thinking about the role of the demiurge or the devil and the objective of the devil. Because if we're talking about on a role, then this would seem that the demiurge has a function which it is performing in accordance with some divine plan. And it is responding perhaps to instructions, or not really to instructions. It is as it is, but it is part of a plan, and that plan is to test us and to test our faith, aka the Book of Job, I suppose. But that's very different from talking about the objective, perhaps, of the devil, of the demiurge, the lord of this earth. And that's much more of a Gnostic thinking, because if it seems that the demiurge is truly independent of God, is not under the auspices of God, or even part of God's plan. So God has a plan, and the devil or the demon, the demiurge, is trying to thwart that plan in many, many different ways. And so we're talking about the objective of the demiurge, of the Lord of this world. It is, according to Gnostics, to separate us from God, and to keep us from attaining God realization through soul realization. So it's there as the big distraction, and to keep us in ignorance, keep us in fear, keep us in darkness, keep us ignorant of our divine birthright, which is to go back to the source of all. So it is a dividing force between soul, which is, according to the Gnostics, trapped in matter, and God, or spirit, which is free of matter, represents spiritual freedom from matter. And God is quite separate from the material universe on one hand, and on the other has a plan which is being thwarted by the God of this world, the Rex Mundi, and which is also called the devil or Satan, or or the great demon, keeping our consciousness trapped here, and keeping our consciousness turned outwards into this world rather than inwards to our soul. Because if it can stop us from attaining soul consciousness, then it will stop the soul from transmigrating to the realm of the Lord, of the God, of the true God. So it's somewhat the objective is somewhat multidimensional in that sense. Be that as it may, though, how does the Rex Mundi hope to achieve this separation, or continuous consciousness of separation, or stop us from attaining God awareness? And it does have a bit of a job on its hands, actually. So, even in the midst of darkness, there is light. Even in the midst of apparent despair, that we are under the thralls of this mighty God, this jailer, this tyrant, that keeps us from attaining God awareness. Even within this situation, there is a spark of hope, because the demiurge, because Rex Mundi has a problem. And the problem is very simple, really. You see, if he creates too much adversity in our lives, then we will cry out for the Christ. We will cry out for the Holy Spirit, and we will attain this heart longingness for the ineffable realm. And this longing will connects us, in fact, to soul, and makes us become aware of soul. So too much too much adversity, too much suffering, and people go into themselves, or they go into their mosque or their church or their temple, and they seek answers from the priesthood, and they seek answers from their own mystical calling, if they have one, or even from the Gospels themselves, which herald, of course, the good news. So adversity drives people to soul awareness. But on the other hand, too much luxury. Okay, too much luxury, too much everything being given to you. Too much welfare, for example, too much free everything, and the person begins to get, they've got perhaps as rich as Croesus, or perhaps they are protected by a socialist society, let's say, and they begin to think everything's okay in life, and that they are safe and secure, which of course in this world is not entirely, obviously is not true, but you can have that feeling as a result of sort of local conditions, as it were. And as a result of that, people begin to think, what is there more? Is there anything more to my life than being rich or being protected? And this may drive people to look for methods of attaining soul awareness in the comfort of their own living rooms, essentially heated, with bread on the table, and an income, and someone to live with, and somewhere to live. The sort of three basic things you need in this life. And so that's too much luxury can lead to soul awareness. So what the Demiurge has to do, he has to sort of walk a very fine line between too much adversity and too little adversity. And in a way, he's got to make sure that people have this idea that they can improve their lot through material means, and through material success, so that they can sort of migrate from relative adversity to relative luxury through the sweat of their brows, kind of thing. And this will keep them chained to materialism, in the sense that a material solution seems like the preferable one to religious solution. So there's got to be sort of a grey area between black and white. So the white would be luxury, and the black would be adversity, poverty, grinding poverty on one hand, and luxury on the other. And there's a sort of grey area which with the Rex Mundi, actually it serves his purpose more, to have a sort of grey area existing in this world, where people, as I say, have a kind of a materialist solution to their problems. Either they want stuff, or they want more of what they've got, and this creates the conditions whereby we are kept in ignorance and darkness, you see. So that's kind of what the Rex Mundi, that's from his kind of point of view, how he's got to track out. If you can imagine the material plane, and indeed the astral and the psychic plane, as a sphere, but they have kind of it's like a maze within a sphere, and in order to keep us in that maze, going round and round, like hamsters on the hamster wheel, if I can mix metaphors, in order to keep the situation going, it's got to be not too much suffering, but also not too little suffering. And, but I'm happy to say that actually it doesn't need a lot of adversity to make things. I think adversity perhaps is better than luxury in the long run, though, because it takes more time for a person living in luxury to see to see that there may be more, whereas a person living in adversity, it maybe takes them a shorter time to begin to see through the cracks in the material world. and to look beyond the prison bars to the light beyond, you see. And certainly I have discovered this. I mean, I think to myself, I'm kind of full of regrets about my life that I've been sort of brought to this, failing eyesight, sick partner, crumbling house, no money, um, and mad daughter to look after, and my own insanity, of course, my own tendency to lose it, I have all these burdens, but on the other hand, I think to myself, okay, I might have taken another path in life, which might have led me to more luxury, and to sort of a better, not quite such a crazy life I'm living now, but it wouldn't be a life that would have led me to God. Whereas all the burdens that I do bear, and sometimes not very graciously, not at all graciously, have led me to a consciousness of soul, and to a consciousness of God. Of course, you may say correctly that I haven't actually completed the process of this process, because I've got to say, like Sir Bors, everything that God sends is welcome. And this God, of course, is referring to the God of this world, because the God of this world has set everything, apparently against me, and apparently also a lot of my own self is against me as well. I'm sort of my own worst enemy in many ways, which I accept, and accept over the decades of my life. I have made appalling decisions, and been very apathetic about things, and not seized my destiny, or not created my own destiny through the sweat of my brow. I've been very lazy and debauched all my life. But despite this, I am going into more acceptance of what is, and I'm also pretty much attaining a regular soul awareness through prayer and meditation and contemplation, through leading a more spiritual life than I've ever led before. So in the sense, I suppose, really, that perhaps life shouldn't be too easy. And if life is too easy, if life, it should be tending towards quite a lot of adversity, and this is what will bring people to God consciousness. But of course, if it's too much stress in your life, I suppose then you will go into reactive state of mind to this stress, and that will pull you further into ignorance and darkness. So it's a bit complicated, really. I think that if the objective of the Demiurge is to distract us from the light, then I think there's lots of ways it can do it. And we fall for it every time, of course, because we don't have control of our minds, and we react mentally to things when we should not react, because our reactions can make everything actually worse as well, materially worse, which makes us fall into greater darkness. So there's vicious cycles, but there's also virtuous cycles as well, in that despite of adversity, we can seek and find God through Christ, and we can actually then attain the awareness that we need in order to escape from the clutches of Rex Mundi altogether. So as I say, it's not going all the way of Rex Mundi. You may look at the world and you may think the devil has everything, but the devil doesn't have everything. I mean, he'll never have your soul. Okay, it never has. He'll never have the light. He wants the light, but he'll never have it. And he wants power. Well, he can have power, but he can't have God's children. That's the deal, you see. He can have as much power as he like, but he'll never have the children of God. That is something because the children belong to God. So he grinds his teeth and he beats his breast, and he makes life a living hell on this planet, or he makes life so completely luxurious that people don't notice anything. Or he creates people that are taking energy away from other people, merrily away, and they're in darkness and ignorance, of course. But you may look at the world and you may think it's an impossible situation, but it isn't really. And in fact, there's going to be mistakes made by the forces of darkness. And those mistakes are only going to be to your ultimate advantage, in fact. So in a sense, we don't live, we live in an imperfect world, but the Demiurge acts imperfectly. And it is in fact his imperfect actions that ultimately result in our salvation and liberation. So even in the midst of adversity in your life, this is indeed why you can contemplate soul awareness and attain it, because the world is actually imperfect. And although the Demiurge would like it to be perfect darkness, it's never going to be perfect darkness, which is something I will explain in another video. There is hope. There is hope. One of the sort of the main pillars, really, of spirituality is hope, and there is hope, hope eternal. But only if you put your hope in the forces of salvation, rather than in the forces of perdition. And perdition arises out of your emotional reactions and your false beliefs that arise from adversity. So, despite adversity, if you don't go down into the realms of false belief and reactive thinking, then indeed the task of the Demiurge to prevent you from uniting with God is one which will ultimately fail. But this failure or success is most definitely in your hands as an agent of free will.